Welcome to the Weekly Blends Reality Check. I'm Corey Burris.
I'm Lasse Lund.
I'm Greg Santee.
And I'm Sam Lucina.
And this week we are talking about Xmen First Class. We're going to look back. It came out a couple weeks ago. We've had a little time to think about it and kind of gather our thoughts. Now this is Bryan Singer, right? Came back for this.
He was a producer on it.
Was the producer on it, okay. And he helped produce this idea of, let's look at what happened in the X-Men series, but how did it all begin? Kind of Xavier as a young kid.
Buckaroo.
It's definitely an origin story of the X-Men as a whole.
Right.
And what I heard about this film was that it was originally, like they did X-Men Origins Wolverine, and they were going to do X-Men Origins Magneto, but that kind of developed into, let's just tell the whole story about the beginning of X-Men as a whole,
right?
Which is this whole first class idea.
So, going into it, we were a little critical, especially you, Sam, being a comic connoisseur. You were very critical of some of the side characters that you were hearing that were going to be in there. I think your concern was very well validated when you go through the movie.
Well, I mean, I had concerns for multiple reasons, and one is, the characters they chose, there's so many mutants in Marvel Comics, and so many, and sure they don't want to use the same characters from the other X movies, but there are so many good characters out there, and they kind of, besides Xavier and Magneto and the villains, they kind of scrape the bottom of the bucket, I felt like.
Well, you have Beast.
Well, you have a few in there that are good, but then they also have a few that are just kind of like, who are these characters that, and I think when it comes to the comic book movies, you want the kids to go and see it and know, be like, there's my favorite characters.
That's a good point.
You don't need to have all the favorite characters, but have some of them, and to put characters in there, like Banshee. Sure, it's a great character in the comic books, but no one knows who that is, unless you're a diehard X-Men fan, and you put Angel Salvador, who is, a girl that she has fly wings and spits acid. Is that really a very interesting character? Because I could care less about her.
I don't want to totally dog on the movie, because I actually think it was a pretty good movie. I think that if you talk about Xavier and the relationship with Xavier and Magneto, was incredibly well put together. All of those dialogue moments where they're having these discussions and they're exploring each other's motives behind everything.
And it was a really cool take on Xavier, because when you see him in the other X-Men movies, he's this very serious, he's Professor Xavier. I mean, and he's still Professor in First Class, but he's just much more laid back, and
he's this young kid.
He's this young kid. Yeah, he's just. I mean, he has all these great telepathic powers, and he really cares about mutants and getting mutants and humanity to cooperate. But he's just a rogue, right? Like, he's just this random element.
Yeah.
He's not refined at all. And I like that aspect of it.
And I always, when we're talking about movies, pacing is a big thing for me. And that movie really did carry along. Despite having weak side characters, it really did do a good job of keeping everything going until a certain point where everybody was kind of trained, and then there was the end. And I felt like they didn't know how to link those two elements together very well, and so they kind of meandered in this weird space of what do we do, what do we do, what do we do, stop here, kind of a thing.
Well, and I thought it was kind of strange that the training period, they had already given you the deadline of a week, right? And and now we're going to do this training period. I'm like, shouldn't that be 6 months or a year? Couldn't you have done that before you gave this week deadline of the big crisis at the end? It just the timeline seemed a little off.
Yeah. Now, that said, the ending was really strong. I actually thought that the end, how Xavier gets paralyzed, how Magneto kind of turns on the whole situation. I mean, everybody knows what happens that knows anything about comics.
Yeah. Well, I think, for me as a comic fan, again, Magneto, a lot of people just think, oh, Magneto, he's a villain, he's evil. Right. And, yeah, sure, his methods may not be the best, but his motives, I feel like he has good motives.
Yeah.
He cares about the mutant race as a whole and protecting it. And I think they did a good job of kind of showing.
Well, and it's cool to see how Xavier tempers that. In their relationship. At first, he's just an angry guy that's using his powers. Magneto is for revenge, right? That's all he cares about. And Xavier essentially gives him a loftier goal. Yeah. But now he's, his methods are still somewhat questionable.
Some of the stuff I really enjoyed, again, Magneto and Xavier, I love the way they portrayed them, but with a lot of the side characters, I was genuinely interested in them until I saw them acting on screen, and I was like, you're really not doing anything with them.
And they were terrible actors.
I feel like a lot of the mutants are just kind of filler. They have powers, they're in there, they're part of their team.
There was a lot of really poor acting in this film. I mean, Xavier and Magneto. I mean, Magneto far and away the best acting in the film, but everybody else, even someone as critical as Mystique to the film, her acting was atrocious, honestly.
Okay, so what would you give it, Sam?
I think I'd give it a 4 out of 5. I mean, I was very skeptical going in, but after seeing the movie, I really enjoyed it as a whole. Once I was able to kind of put, the continuity aside and any issues I had with the side characters, I was so interested in the Magneto and Xavier story that I ended up having a blast watching it.
Lasso?
I would give it a 4 out of 5 as well. I mean, I feel like I'm nitpicking a lot, and probably most of my review here has been negative, but I really did enjoy it, and I feel like it was a good film.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I mean, the first 3/4 of that movie or 2/3 of that movie were awesome, great movie, and the ending was kind of capped it off. It just had a little lull point in there for me that kind of dragged, but 4 out of 5.
I do got to add in the 2 cameos were amazing.
Yeah,
by the way.
The cameos are awesome.
And I never saw it.
All right.
I can't really
So the
rate
weekly rating, we give Xmen First Class a 4 out of 5.